little bit more serious.
Yeah, marriage is serious.
Yes, it takes work.
It is a legal contract in its most basic form.
That's correct.
And function. It
Yes.
is a legal contract.
Yes.
Yet, of course, gay marriage here is not allowed in Singapore yet.
That's correct, Philip. And to that, I would like to say, fuck you, religious rights. If you want to keep marriage to you, fine, take it. We don't want it. We don't need it.
Well, we
don't need it.
mm,
But yeah, just give us our civil unions. Because ultimately, all we want is to be legally and economically responsible to our partners.
and vice versa. The whole idea of marriage, I think right now, because we are not married, and we do have a few gay married friends
Correct.
among us.
And even friends of friends who are.
Yes. So we have, maybe we should get a pair of them on our pod sometimes.
Yeah, why not, right?
Yeah.
I think that would be interesting to hear it from their perspective. What
Yeah.
what kind of motivated them to be married? Was it romance?
Mm.
You can tell by now I'm a cynical bitch.
Yeah.
Was it romance, or did they also consider the legal and economic implications of being bounded to each other?
And with marriage, I would say that a lot of gay marriages have gone down the heteronormative aspect of having a partner, kids, a dog, white picket fences. The whole idea of what worked for my parents
Correct.
is the kind of family that I want. I mean, no shade.
No.
This is something that they've grown up with.
And I think it's fine to emulate what you know, right? So if this version of marriage based on heteronormativity is what I know of, then let's follow that.
Again, the basis of marriage should be on honesty.
Yeah.
So we talked about earlier where married couples could be going for swinger parties, could be going for sexual partner switching parties, things like that.
Correct.
So this is something that needs to be communicated.
Exactly. So to this point, you reminded me of this this very interesting thing that I remember back in the day when I was in my first job, and a senior in the company, of course, he's straight, he's married and things like that, right? And again, because we are market researchers, we tend to overthink things. And I think in this case, what he shared, I don't even remember what the context was for him to share it with me, but what I thought he shared was quite refreshing. The idea that, frankly, there's nothing about marriage that implies fidelity, commitment, respect, honesty, and a lot of these big concepts. Or the idea that marriage needs to come with these things. Or the idea that marriage needs to only have one version of these things. Okay, what do I mean by this? So the idea, so let's say again back to fidelity. What does fidelity look like in a heteronormative marriage? Right?
Correct. Yeah.
From a legal framework perspective, unfortunately, it's only a man and a woman. That's why adultery is a crime, right? But if it were up to people, it doesn't have to be that sexual infidelities constitute as infidelities.
Yep.
Again, between two people, that's all that matters, isn't it?
And the boundaries are further blurred when there's no clear definition of what constitutes cheating.
Exactly.
If I look at another person on the street, does that constitute cheating?
Right.
If I sleep with the person, but no emotions are involved, does that constitute cheating? If I even think about that person, does it also constitute cheating?
Yeah. What do you make of flirty texts, messages?
Yep. So at the end of the day, I believe these are very hard conversations that need to be discussed, explored.
For sure.
And thankfully in Singapore, I believe a lot of couples are encouraged to go for marriage counseling before they get married.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think that's one of those, again, safeguards, if you will, because you're right, it can be fairly random for two people, even if they are in a very long-term relationship before marriage, to suddenly talk about, do we want kids? what do we think about extending credit to buy our dream house? So money, finance, children, upbringing, all these need to be discussed. And within the framework and context of marriage counseling, that might work.
I would like to think all those practical issues are easier to cover.
Meaning?
Like for example, are you having kids? Yes. Then okay. It's almost like this checklist.
Yeah. Flowchart. Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So the practical ones are, the practical questions are easier to cover. It's those which are a little bit those questions that make people a little bit uncomfortable. Like what we talk about, what constitutes cheating?
Correct.
Are you going to have, sometimes couples, again going back to the topic of sex, it's always about sex, right?
Yes.
They need to define what are the sexual likes and dislikes.
Correct.
Yeah. You would think that this is something that they cover before they get married, but no, it's hardly
correct.
covered.
It's a bit of a weird one.
It's always assumed.
Yeah, it's always assumed, and I think there's no context to bring that out as a discussion unless it happens or doesn't happen in the bedroom, right? Because again, sex may or may not be an important part of a long-term partnership in the sense of a marriage, but again, it needs to be covered, like, you know, does the husband like pegging, or is a three-way necessarily two women and one man, or is it one man and two women, right?
Or two men and a woman,
right? So again, marriage needs to, because we take it seriously, and it should be taken seriously. I think all these topics and conversations need to be had.
True.
Yeah.
And let's go back to gay marriages.
Yes.
And it's something that we do see an uptick in. Whether or not it's something that's encouraged is a different story.
Interesting, Philip. Why the reservation?
Look, with both of us are in long-term partnerships as of now.
Yes.
Yeah. And the fundamental ask that we have is that we must care for our partner.
Yeah.
In a legal sense.
Yeah.
So being able to provide and be provided is very important. And this is something that perhaps heterosexual couples and married couples take for granted.
Correct.
And it is something that we should also think about. Unfortunately, in Singapore, there's a lot more work that needs to be done in this department.
Yeah, that's right, Philip. And I think going back to that point about civil unions, because that's why it's important for us as gay people to at least have that fundamental legal framework where if anything untoward happens to either one of the two persons or a three persons relationship, I don't care, whatever, right?
Let's just keep it to two persons.
Let's just keep it for discussion purposes, just two persons, right? Any one of the two people in a partnership, if anything untoward were to happen, the other party needs to be taken care of, needs to be legally and economically protected. So I think civil unions are definitely important.
Very practical arrangements. And I guess that is also the basis of gay relationships.
That's correct.
Because romantic feelings aside, it is also something that needs to be taken care of.
Yeah, and you kind of have to account for that, right? Because again, it can be all rainbows and butterflies, but when shit hits the ceiling fan, everybody gets a piece of it. So yeah, you want to make sure that that's covered. And again, there are such instances where, yeah, if we don't have the right legal frameworks, the living party in the case of death, for example, will really have to go through shit and high water just to claim whatever is owed to him.
Yeah, there's recently this movie that was released in Hong Kong that talks about a pair of lesbian couples who are out to one of the partner's family, right? So unfortunately, one of them passed away, and the family that used to be close, that was accepting of this
That
person,
relationship, yeah.
suddenly became a bit hostile because of the surviving partner starting to try to claim the rights to the property and all of that.
Correct.
So there was the drama actually started because
The drama.
Yes, it's very unfortunate. It's a very real. It's not a documentary. It is a movie. It's a very real movie,
right,
that talks about this idea of how for gay relationships, marriage, even if you have gone through all of that, even if you are legally bound, sometimes the family is the one challenge that may seem all rainbows and butterflies before, but it could instantly change.
Exactly.
When money is involved.
Exactly, Philip. And I think that this idea of love between two persons is one thing. Marriage is between two families. And when it takes that kind of structure, which is no longer just two persons, it gets hell of a lot more complicated.
Yeah. So whether it's dating, relationships, marriage, we've ascertained that it has to be built on open communication and honesty.
For sure. I mean, I think that's part of this idea of what I mentioned earlier, work. Honesty takes work, communication takes work, and if people are committed, part of that commitment then comes from the fact that you have to be in conversation about these things and have the right mental and kind of mental attitude, if you will, towards resolving any conflicts that might come along the way.
Yeah. Again, we would like to just emphasize that for the most part, homosexual and heterosexual dating, relationship, and marriage are all the same.
Because fundamentally, love is love, isn't it?
Correct. That is correct.
Love is love.
We don't really want to push any gay agenda. There is no gay agenda.
Isn't there, Philip?
You disagree?
The agenda has been made gay only because we have to push our way. We have been, as queer people, we have been pushed out into the peripherals. So of course our agenda is gay.
So playing devil's advocate, isn't it a bit ironic that we say that we just want to be the same, to ask for the same things that all other people are, and yet we want to label it as a gay agenda?
Philip, I think the greatest day will come when we don't have to have this conversation.
Yes.
We have to label it as gay right now because, again, we have been ostracized, we've been denied the rights that two people who are committed should have.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's, for lack of a better term, yes, there is a fucking gay agenda. It's in a pink dossier with lots of sprinkles on top.
And also a lot of pink highlighter points.
Yes, bitch.
Yeah, so relationships, really tough.
Ugh.
Yeah.
You think?
Well, with that, I think we have come to the end of this episode. Thank you for the past 45 minutes.
Yes.
For joining, for
listening in, basically, for us to share our thoughts on the idea of relationships, dating, and not being able to get married, unfortunately. But yeah.
Season 2 is going to be a lot more interesting, I would say, if not visual. We are trying to make it as visual as possible.
That's correct. We have a list. We've checked it twice. There are some topics which are naughty and there are some topics that are nice.
Yeah, but whichever the case is, we would like to have you together with us on our journey.
Yes.
Not just to understand us a little bit more, but also to be a little bit more enlightened, if you will.
That's great.
On the topics that we discuss, whether it's from our angle or from different angles that we can get from people around us.
That's correct, Philip. And now that we are on YouTube, we are on and we have always been on the very many different platforms for podcasts. Feel free to share your thoughts. This is not a one-way street. We are not preaching.
Yes.
We are not even qualified preachers.
Yeah.
So feel free to share your thoughts. Let us know what you think about our thoughts on dating, relationships, and marriages.
And any of our previous episodes for that matter.
That's correct. We promise you we have a lot more of where all of this came from. Stay tuned.
Right, so what's left is for you to like,
Share,
and subscribe to our channel. This has been Philip.
This is Derek.
Signing off.
Bye.
Bye-bye.